Welcome to the final episode in this series of Kildrummy CostCasts on the topic of spreadsheets for cost management. In today's session, we're going to be looking at improvability, or in another terminology, lessons learned. How can we improve on delivering the second, third, fourth and fifth projects based upon the previous project that we've just executed? So looking at improving how we estimate, looking at how we manage performance, looking at the better suppliers potentially that we could use, and measuring project against project in order to see an overall improvement or to see areas where indeed we could look to improve. One of the toughest challenges we face in project delivery today is being able to improve on each project that we deliver, to become more efficient, to become more profitable. Clearly, one of the best ways to do that is to ensure that we do not repeat the negative actions that we carried out on a previous project and do maximize on those things that we did well. That's what we talk about when we talk about improvability or benchmarking of project to project, contractor to contractor, etc., etc. One of the key parts of continuous improvement, as we've said, is not repeating history. A famous philosopher, George Santayana, has said this, and I'll let you read that for a second. So clearly what we don't want to do is to repeat the negative. But what did we do well? Have we captured that information well on project A so that we can potentially re-import that spreadsheet for project B? Have the information that we've collected, is it useful for project B if it's of a similar scope? If it is, then we could try to compare the spreadsheets. But typically what we find is that's not actually the case. What we find is project A had an excellent spreadsheet, as we saw in our earlier sessions, on consistency and continuity. But those analytics from project A weren't repeatable for project B for various reasons. Perhaps the structuring of the data was different, the WBS structuring was different, or maybe even just the way in which the reports were generated was different. What that means is there's a lot of rework potentially to recreate those analytics for project B and future projects because the consistency isn't there. So therefore, being able to measure a project that perhaps was carried out 2 or 3 years ago against a project that we have just finished executing or one that we are planning to execute is very difficult when we use spreadsheets. So we need to think of a more powerful way in that we can create some consistency in that information to allow me to have historical project analytics that are useful for future projects and for future improvement and therefore continuous improvement as we move forward. So how do we address that? How do we address having powerful analytics that are consistent, that we can use for future projects and measurement of historic projects and be able to use that information to not repeat history, but to repeat the positivity of actions that we did that actually benefited the project? So therefore, we want to have a system that allows me for project B, C, D, and therefore onwards to be able to leverage that data that was created previously. Without the rework, without a lot of time to realign the analytics information, to have to resort that information, and that's even if that initial spreadsheet is still available. So we need to ensure we have a consistent, common solution that allows me to have these metrics that can be measured for my future project in order that I can not repeat history where perhaps our estimating norms were wrong or the initial budgeting value for certain types of work was based on previous quotes that are now out of date, etc. We need to use the most up-to-date information in the most positive way as we move forward for our next project, be that project B, C, D, or project Z. Let's take a look at how that looks in a professional cost management system, as in Kildrummy Cost Management. So in our previous session on scalability, we looked at using a consistent solution, Kildrummy Cost Management Solutions, to be able to manage both our shutdown, turnaround, and revamp type projects, but also in exactly the same methodology with the same commonality and the same approach to use that for capital projects. So here I'm logged into a situation with a dashboard that covers both a capital project and also, if I scroll down, we can look at it from a turnaround type aspect. The information and the analysis that I'm looking for on my dashboard could be different. So for the capital project, I'm coming more from a WBS point of view, but more about for the shutdown and turnaround aspect, I'm looking potentially at specific vendors, specific crafts, etc. So the ability to capture information at these different levels in a consistent manner allows me to then use that data for benchmarking. So let's look at how we actually do that inside of Kildrummy Cost Management. One of the quickest ways to do that is either via my stored reports or I can easily access it via the reporting menu. I go to reporting view and I can call up the reports that are there. I could easily have had on my dashboard some saved reports, but just to show you a different approach, I can come into the reporting menu, type in benchmark, and here I can see Project WBS benchmark report with level selection. So let's open that and look at what we can do. So here I can select which project is my current project, which project is the historical project that we want to look at, and then be able to run that report based upon the report template that can be configured if you wish, or you can use the out-of-the-box template to look at different measures comparing this project, so let's say project A versus project B. So let's run that and take a look. So here we have just one example of a report template that looks at benchmarking. So from a capital point of view, in this example, we're going to look at it from a WBS viewpoint. So the ability to look at WBS levels where there was a commonality in the WBS between project A, in this case my 2015 project, and project B, which is my 2017 project. So we deliberately created a level or multiple levels that were comparable between projects. You may wish to go to a more finite level of detail on a certain project than others, but you should still look to maintain a common level or multiple common levels. Potentially it could be area, it could be type, it could be asset type, it could be commitment type, etc. Those are completely configurable by your own choices, but if we can try to create at least one or two levels of consistency in that structuring, it immediately allows me to do what we're looking at on screen. So in this idea, what we've looked at in this template is we've got the metrics of actual quantities, plan versus actual and the variance thereof, productivity, and budget forecast quantity variance. So looking at what we budgeted versus what we forecast, how has that changed between projects? And clearly I can see that there are some changes, and some positive, some negative. One of the key ones for me when I look at these sort of metrics and KPI type reports is productivity. I can look at certain projects that are 2 years apart and I can see that the productivity changed. There was a massive change in productivity here in the relief devices area. So something happened on project 2017 that was very different to that of 2015. And that would be something I'd be concerned about and something that I'd want to analyze. But this is looking at the lowest level. We're looking at this right down to level 3. Using my level selectors on the left hand side here, I can roll my report up. I can roll it up to level 2 and resubmit that report. Here what we can see now, we've rolled it up to level 2, so I'm just looking at the plant level of the WBS, and it starts to give me a more summarized view. This can be very helpful when we want to look at it at a slightly higher level to see what actually when we rolled it up to this level of the WBS, the productivity numbers are pretty similar. However, when we look at quantities and we look at budget versus forecast, clearly there was a big differential here, and again that would be something that we'd look to analyze. So this is looking at it from a WBS point of view. When we look at it from a shutdown point of view, we may have a different view. We may want to look at it from a vendor or a productivity point of view per supplier, per contractor. So let's take a look at that and see how that looks. So once again, what I can do, I return back to my report view, and clearly because this is all web-based, I can have multiple tabs open, so I don't have to jump backwards and forwards all the time. I can simply use these tabs. These tabs now bring me to the demonstration of the vendor benchmark report. So let's open that and take a look. So similarly as before, I can choose my current project and my previous project, and now I can actually start to select different vendors, different contractors if I choose. In this example, we've just chosen these two suppliers in order to demonstrate how the reports look. So let's run that report and take a look. So here we can see the same two suppliers that we looked at before on the sort order and the selection criteria, SRI and VRI, and we've chosen to run this report down at the resource level. Again, because we're using a templated report, we have the consistent type reports that shows me the same metrics and the same measures, actual quantities, plan versus actual, productivity, and budget versus forecast. And once again, I can see we clearly have some variances that need to be investigated. It seems to me, by looking quickly at the productivity numbers, we actually were less productive on project 2017 than we were on 2015. Why is that? Was there a different weather condition? Was there a change in the personnel of that specific supplier and contractor? Those are the sort of things that we would need to look at. However, when we come down and we look at the VRI supplier or contractor, the numbers there are a little bit more middle spread. Some are positive, some are negative. So perhaps what we need to do is, again, similarly than before, is to roll up the report, not necessarily at the resource level, but perhaps at resource 1. So let's change our selection level here and resubmit the report. So what we can see is that the actual quantities for both of these contractors or suppliers were over compared to 2015 to 2017. The productivity was less from 2017 to 2015, which potentially could be due to the additional quantities. However, the forecast variance, i.e. the difference between what we forecast versus the budget, was less. So the forecast variance between 2017 and 2015 was less. Therefore, the forecast was more accurate to the budget. So clearly the forecasting is working better, but the actual quantities we would need to look at. We need to look at how those actuals are actually coming in, why is there such a variance, and be able to analyze that in order that when we can move forward for the next project, we can take into account clearly there's a difference when it comes to the actuals when the forecast is a little bit more accurate. Again, it's food for thought, continuous improvement, but using this information, it allows me to improve moving forward for the next project. Let's now go back to our dashboard, and we can then wrap up looking at the different comparisons. So as we've seen, whether we're looking at it from a capital point of view, where potentially we're looking at it more from a WBS aspect, where I can drill into my WBS and compare different measures against different projects, or if I'm looking at it from a shutdown, turnaround, revamp point of view, where we're looking at it from a different aspect, a different viewpoint, vendors or contractors, etc., as I've mentioned. Either way, we can use the same system, the same historical data, to allow us to continually improve moving forward to the next project and future projects. So that brings us to the end of this final session, session 5, on improvability within the series for spreadsheets for cost management. And what we've seen is we've looked through commonality, we've looked at continuity and consistency, scalability, security, and then finally today we looked at improvability. Each of these aspects can be a big challenge for spreadsheets, and in certain circumstances it may well be that the spreadsheet can overcome some of them. But clearly in every single aspect of every single project and across an entire organization, spreadsheets do not necessarily represent the optimum way for us to manage project critical information in the way that is professional for today's projects. So the final question that leaves me with is, are you ready to enhance how you're delivering cost management on your projects? No matter what the scale, no matter what the project type, being able to deliver cost management in a common and consistent way, being able to use that same common functionality and consistency across all different types of projects, and doing so in a secure, data protected environment, both internal and external, and then being able to capture information across multiple projects across multiple years to enable your organization to continuously improve. If you're ready to enhance your projects, give us a call. I'm Chris Y. I thank you very much for your time, and we look forward to joining you on the next session in our Kildrummy CostCasts. Thank you very much.